Hey y'all, welcome back to our weekly energy series. I'm Peyton and I'm joined by Corey and Yaila, and we have another amazing topic for y'all today. Today we are talking about the difference between living your life in a state of effort and living your life in a state of flow. Because as you know, we are shifting from the third dimension into the fifth dimension, and the way we create things in our life is starting to change. We are moving from the effort paradigm to the flow paradigm. And so today we are going to be talking about how you can do that. So today I would like to start with you, Yaila. What does living in effort mean to you versus living in a state of flow?
Thank you, Peyton. Yeah, this topic has actually been on my mind for a little bit, so I'm so excited that we get to discuss this with you all. So when I think of effort versus flow, I think of what you resist persists. That term or that little saying pops up in my mind quite a bit when it comes to energy, and just working with energy for a few years with the people I work with. It's something I noticed that is like a pushing energy for effort. So not to say, I think many of us grew up with, hard work pays off. There's a lot of sayings around all the different things that happen when you are putting in a lot of effort. And it's not to say not to try stuff, not to give it your all. I actually find when I meet people who are really at the top of their game in whatever industry or profession that is, it's very inspiring because it does take a lot of dedication and focus and commitment to yourself to get things done. So when I think of effort on an energetic stance, it's not necessarily on not doing any of those things, because to some level, when you are reaching something, there is a connection to it. However, when I think of effort that can actually hinder our progress more, it's more of pushing your agenda or pushing your stance on something and kind of keeping the blinders on to, the universe kind of aligning things for you. I feel like for many of us, we kind of get this very narrow view or this very closed off view of the only way it can happen. So it's not to say not to have the goal or not to have the outcome that you're working towards, but not to be so focused on this is the only way it can happen. So when I think of effort versus flow, you're still having a focus on where you're wanting to go, but you're not blocking yourself out for how things can be streamlined or simple or align for you, because you are, if you're an effort, you're kind of blocking off, well, this is how I have to do it, and this is the only way. And so you're kind of pushing away the universe, helping you actually align and things flow into alignment for you in a way easier way. So in my mind, when I think of effort versus flow, it's not so much don't try. Yes, you have to take action. But at the same time, we have our own intuition on different levels for a reason. And when we are in effort, many times we're kind of in that logic brain. Many times we're in that side of ourselves that's pre-programmed with certain beliefs and certain conditions and certain limitations that we only focus on, again, that little window of how it can be, versus if we were actually in flow, even if we had a limiting belief, we knew where we were going. If we were in flow and just open to what our intuition was saying, and this has happened to me where it's like trying something new, and I, maybe decide to say yes to something and start focusing on that. When I just am open to how I can make it work, new ideas pop in. Versus when I have something I'm trying to start and I'm trying to push and make myself do it, it just feels like I am working 10 times harder than I need to be. And those times, many times in the past, I've actually not even completed the task because I dropped it because it just felt so off. So effort versus flow is a really interesting concept when you start to look at, well, why are you efforting? Is there an easier way to do it? When you start getting curious and let your inner guidance start to lead you in the directions that line up for you, you'll actually find a way to be more of the observer to what's going on versus getting so locked into this is how it can or can't be, and this is the only way to do it. Because as an observer, you're a little more neutral to, the how of it all when you're focused on something. When you get to just kind of flow with the universe, you still get to experience the journey, which is for me a big part of the learning, part of why we're here, expanding our desires. But you also get to have a lot more fun doing it. You get to keep the joy and the amusement in what you're working on. And, even those harder times, it's like when you're flowing and you're putting in your excitement and your awareness and little things that pop up, when you just kind of let it flow and just know you're going to keep moving forward, those hurdles that used to feel really, really big when you're efforting and pushing and trying, and it's almost like the more you push to make it work, the further away it got, and you're in flow, and now it's just like a big hurdle feels like a little bump or like a little step, and it doesn't knock you off track. It doesn't slow you down as much. It starts to feel more in reach than I feel like if you were only in effort mode when you are aligning to those desires that you have for yourself. So that's where I would start, with effort versus flow. But how about you, Corey?
Oh, that's wonderful, Yaila. Effort versus flow. When I think of effort versus flow, I think of trying to walk through a door and not looking for it, just walking into the wall, poof, 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 just keep walking into it and walking into it, efforting to try and find the door without really just stopping and saying, okay, where's the door? And then finding it and walking through it. Um, Another thing that comes up is, working smarter, not harder. Don't we all wish that we can do that? But that is really a good comparison of effort versus flow. You know, uh, and with a lot of students that we have, right? I know they'll speak for some of my students, is that when we are teaching them energy work and, getting into meditation and, they're really efforting, to see or work, run energy. It's been, I know it's been my experience. I know Yaila's too, and Peyton's, is that when you effort it and you're willing it, you know, will, willing it, it blocks the energy from coming in. So one of the big major things that all three of us as teachers, we have to teach our students to flow. Let the energy come to you. Know that your intention is enough. So the energy can just come in. And that's the way it is for life. That's been my experience that, it's like, yes, yeah, you were saying, yes, got to have a goal. But it reminds me of, Buddhists, the path to enlightenment is not a straight line. It's curved, you know. And when we go with the flow and we enjoy the journey of life and just go with the flow of it and listen to whatever guides you have or spirit or, God for that matter. Um, yes, the road might be windy, but that's where all the growth and the lessons and the excitement are. If you're trying to just push a straight line through and efforting, there's walls and mountains and blocks and stumbles. Um, it's harder to get wherever you're going. So, I and I grew up too, where you have to really, really work hard for something. And when you set your mind to something, there's no veering from that. It hurts. Efforting can hurt because that's the universe's way of trying to tell us that you might want to come over here, you know, instead of self will, self will versus universe's will. And I know for me that every day I go, oh, help me to do You're not mine, because my will can hurt. When I think I know that as a human being, that's that 3D consciousness is that real efforting, setting a goal, mapping out your path to get there and not veering much from it. That's very 3D. And the 5D consciousness is about the flow. What does spirit tell you? If you're walking in a direction and things just aren't happening, in the 3D world, we just push more. And in the 5D consciousness, we go, oh, I think maybe that's not the way to go. So, well, I'll tell you, it's been quite a journey, and to the consciousness of flow, because I can be a bit self-willed, and I loved how Peyton, you said, from the 3D consciousness to the 5D consciousness. That's a perfect example of effort versus flow, and it is a consciousness. It's not like we arrive into a whole nother realm of or dimension of something and be like, oh, we're here. Oh. It's our consciousness. So choosing to flow today best I can, and teaching others to try and flow, which is trust the universe, trust your spirit guides, whoever's in your spiritual realm is where the flow is. Just have to align our will with the universe's will, and things do flow a lot better. So, Peyton, what have you got?
I love what you guys said. I think those are both beautiful examples of, what the difference is between living in effort or accomplishing things through effort versus flow. And what comes up for me is we're going through a paradigm shift. We are changing the way we operate and the way we create and manifest things in our life. And so for most of us, we grew up in the 3D construct, the 3D paradigm, which, as y'all have covered so well, is based on physical action. In order to get anything done, what did you have to do? You had to take a lot of physical action. You had to hustle, you had to grind, you had to claw for what you wanted. And we kind of honored that. It was a badge of courage to be the one who could hustle the most or grind the most. I know in so many of my business classes, that was just held up as the model way to live, is to be the best hustler. But that is our old construct, and we are moving away from that, thank God. Because when you are in 3D and in this action-oriented mode, it's a lot like driving with the emergency brake on. Can you do it? Absolutely. Is it fun or easy? Not so much. And so 3D is kind of, we had to scratch out anything that we wanted. We really had to claw and grasp for anything. But we're shifting into an entirely new way of doing business. So now we are moving into a framework where anything we want to create in our life, we can still do it the old way. And we know how that feels, but we now have a new option on the table. Now we can create in flow. And so the way we create in flow is we do it with our frequency. So whereas the language of 3D was physical action, the language of 5D is frequency. So by controlling our frequency, we then draw things to us. Because the matrix, which we will still be in a form of the matrix in 5D, albeit a better one, things come to us through the frequency we are holding, which is why what the three of us talk about all the time is how to raise your frequency, your vibration, how to be in alignment. Because as you do that, you are raising your frequency. And so moving into the 5D way of operating, it's all about learning to control our frequency. And to do that and to live in flow, we're moving into our intuition. So we're moving out of the brain. And when we operated in 3D by the brain, it was all about a lot of control and resistance energy. And that doesn't work for us so well in 5D. So 5D is all about being in the heart and all about operating from intuition. And that's a little tricky because we have to learn to trust. And for a lot of us, that is not the easiest thing in the world to do because our intuition is very different from working in the mind. We work from following nudges, following little whispers from the universe, and it's not necessarily logical or linear. And it makes our ego mind a little insecure to change how we operate. Because how do you know things are going to get done if you don't grind them out? And so that's why so many of us are struggling with this shift from effort to flow. So the question that always comes up for me, and did when I was first starting to kind of understand this change we're going through, is well, how do we operate then from flow? We know what the old model is, and it wasn't really the most fun. So how do we operate from this fifth dimensional construct so things are easier? And the first thing that the Pleiadians always talk about is they encourage us to start operating from our imagination. They said your imagination is everything. It creates your reality. Because what your imagination does, it triggers your feelings, your emotions. So you start to play with what you want to create in life. You start to then trigger that feeling or that frequency in your body. You start to feel what it feels like to have that thing you're trying to create. And then as you do that, the way we put that into motion is through inspired physical action instead of clawing physical action, which so many of us are so good at. So to me, learning how to be in flow is about just getting into the intuitive state more and then taking action when you're inspired to do it, even if you're not totally sure where it's headed. Because again, your intuition doesn't operate on logic. So that's kind of how I think of effort versus flow, or the way I like to think of it is more woo, less do. So we are moving out of, the do for everything, the clawing, the effort. It's just way too hard. Let's do it in an easier way. So for me, it's all about the woo. So that is how I am thinking about our transition from effort to flow and how I'm trying to do more of that. I, of course, still catch myself in the old modality. That lawyer comes out and I try to force things, try to will things. But at least now I have another approach I can start to go back to. So let's all be more woo and less do. So, girls, anything else coming up for you?
I just love that, Peyton. More woo, less do. I think that's just such a great way to put it. And what comes to my mind as far as effort versus flow for a lot of us, where that effort actually originates is kind of a trauma response because there is a worthiness piece stuck to it or not enoughness piece stuck to it. So we're kind of looking for acceptance or love or feeling like we're good enough to have certain things or do certain things. And so when you're kind of coming from that lack deeper belief, you're pushing because it has to be this way. But when you're coming more from a flow, it's more of like you were kind of saying, it's like aligning with what your heart truly wants and being open to the discovery of how that flows in. And so when you're asking your intuitive heart, you're asking yourself, okay, like I would like this, please guide me. You're going to be shown a path, and those little things that pop up of like, whether it's an inner thought or you kind of get a sign or something pops up into your awareness or somebody sharing something, you'll get lit up. You'll feel excited. You'll feel like, oh, wow, like maybe I can do that. And then you start naturally getting curious. Those times in my life when I have followed those little intuitive hits, I got taken to places and learned experiences. And I feel like I just catapulted my journey when I followed those aligned things versus when I was coming from a lack of like, oh, I think I need this and it has to be this way. And I'm, in that logic brain where we have some of that pre-programming or those limiting beliefs that somehow got into our space one way, shape, or form. And when you're coming from that lack of like never having enough, never doing enough, like you're never going to have enough. That's what's going to show up in your reality. The reality is going to match that deeper belief. And so as we are shifting into more of heart alignment with our intuition, you're truly aligning to those things that excite you. And even though you don't reach the destination in an instant, the journey along that is bringing in things that matches excitement, that matches your natural curiosity, that just helps you feel more aligned on your journey. So, effort a lot of times can come from that lack place, that it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky energy sometimes.
Well, too, is, you're saying that, Yaila, that, when you do, you may not, versus flow, you don't get there as fast. But, what I found is that when you do move more into the woo, the 5D, I know for me, I get there faster. I do, because I'm not, banging up against ways that aren't working, that the universe isn't supporting, that old paradigm. Peyton, more woo, less do. You know what? You crack me up. You do. You crack me up. And also too, because, we've known each other a long time. And when you said that, I never thought I'd hear you say that. More woo, less do. And it's like, yes, and when we get into the woo, more flow, we find that it really is easier. It really is a faster way to really get, because yes, manifesting through the heart as opposed to, the do. Gosh, I used to work 14, 16 hours a day on a movie set. That's a lot of doing. And the universe decided, well, you need to be doing less doing. And, I shattered my heel, and you know what? I was down. And that was a big, big shift for me. I thought, oh my gosh, I can't get up and go and do and, work through my feelings or hear my intuition through doing. And I had to be and go with the flow. And it took my brain, took my brain a good month to really stop fighting the do, because it's all I know. And I knew that, for most of us, it's, you have to do to accomplish. And so I got to, the universe helped a girl out, and kind of smacked me down right away to learn how to just be and go with the flow, and to listen to the universe, listen to the guides, listen to my higher self. And so I personally think that flow is a lot easier. It is, we are leaving that paradigm, and it does take practice. But once you practice, all the little, all the little miracles and all the little magic in the world start to happen. When you go with the flow, and flow with the universe, it's magical. And it takes time, but boy, you get a little magic here, a little magic there. Makes you want to do it more. Ladies, that was so great.
Yeah, and I think one thing that comes up with this as you're trying to figure out how to move from your old way of doing business, because we really are so conditioned. So it can really be a challenge and take some time to break out of just the way we were raised. We were raised on this different way of thinking. And so your mind is going to want to keep dragging you back to the old way of doing things. But I have one quick story about how this can play out. And as I was going through my training, which I did with Corey and Yaila, I was coming to the end, and I was really trying to figure out, what my next step was going to be, who my next teachers were. And normally I would go into do mode, and I would start researching and trying to figure out who to work with. And I noticed that people kept telling me in my group of intuitive friends that I needed to take this Reiki class. And I'm like, I'm not a healer. I don't really see myself as a healer. But after like 4 people told me that I needed to take this same Reiki class, And I was going, I don't really understand why, but okay, I'll do it. So I went and I took this class. And first of all, it turned out to be amazing. But what happened, and the reason the universe was leading me to that class, is because I got the referral to the next teacher that I needed. Just randomly, I could never have planned it. And if I was trying to use my physical mind to find the next step in my path, I probably never would have found this person. But just by listening to the synchronicities, which I think is how flow talks to us, is through synchronicity, the next step dropped into my lap in the most random way possible. And so if you learn to listen to those breadcrumbs, even if they don't make any sense to the ego mind, that is the universe showing you how to move through flow. So it saved me a ton of research. I didn't have to go figure out what I was going to do. I just did what the universe was showing me. Neon signs was the next step. So just a little story about how this can look in real life, where it makes no sense to the mind, but the universe can see things you can't see. So that's the mode I think that we are moving into. And I, for one, can't wait. I'm done with hustle and grind.
Seriously. And I love what both of you are sharing, because it does remind me, when you're in the flow, you actually realize there's more little miracles that pop up. The universe is always talking to you. Little miracles are happening every day. And if you are open to allowing them to come in and just having the intention to be in flow, you will actually pick up and notice them more and more and more. And the more you notice it, the more excited you get about it, and the more you notice it happens. So it's a really fun journey.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you do it, the more it happens. Because the universe is like, oh, she's finally listening.
Right? Well, it's my Sag moon. Everything's got to be fun. You know, if it isn't fun, we got to make it fun. That's the Sag moon. I can't help it. And rising, but
Yeah, life is meant to be enjoyed. We're here to
getting back to that.
yeah.
Well, awesome, ladies. That was such a great topic. I always love hearing your perspective on things because I always learn something from you guys. So I'm so glad that we are helping to just kind of share our thoughts with anyone else who just might benefit. So guys, we are so grateful that you are watching our videos. Please let us know if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, anything that we haven't covered yet. And as always, we appreciate your likes, your shares, your subscribes, and your follows. It helps us just share this message with other people who may be struggling with the same things. So we love y'all, and we will see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.